All right, everyone. It's time for the Smite World Championship Grand Finals. Are you guys excited in the house? I think I'm going to do this one more time because I truly think you guys, with the thunder sticks and the yelling and the screamings and all the things, can get a lot louder. One more time. Are you guys excited for the Grand Finals? That's right. I wanted to feel the earth shake. All right, guys. This is exciting times indeed. We are going to crown a new world champion. Of course, folks, if you're just joining us here, this is the grand final between Epsilon versus Enemy. And this is the pre-show before we kick off and introduce the teams. Let's actually talk about the journey that these two teams took here, because it certainly was one for the ages. I actually want to start with Enemy, because Enemy has had challenge after challenge placed in front of them.
You know, heading into the fall split, PainDeViande picks up 4 new members for his team. Everyone thought that this was the wrong move to make. He said, this is the squad I want. This is the squad that I think can take me to Worlds. I predicted that they were going to be the worst team in the SPL. I honestly thought that, and most people agreed with that. They ended up being incredibly average. Finished in the middle, and then regionals actually was only supposed to be 4 teams. They weren't even supposed to make it to regionals. It got expanded to 6 for super regionals, and then they come in still an underdog, that average team that people thought would just fall over in the first matchup. And then they beat TSM. And everyone's like, okay, this team's all right, but they're not going to beat Envy. And then they beat Envy.
Awkward.
I don't know what you're talking about. I took that out of my memory.
Selective memory,
yes.
Of course,
and,
right?
and then they fall to Cloud9 3-0. Like, it was just destruction. It was such a stomp, and it really seemed like the team just, you know, they made it to Worlds, and they kind of like lost all that energy.
It was like, yay, you made it to Worlds. Congratulations.
And people were saying, you know, Envy had been struggling near the end of the split, so it's kind of like, okay, they got lucky, right? They're just like, oh, they got lucky because they beat a struggling team who was really starting to fail. And then heading into Worlds, once again, it's just like, all right, you know, Fnatic and Paradigm are going to be the semifinal, and Cloud9 and Epsilon. And then they beat Fnatic, and everyone's like, okay, they start to be legit. But they're not going to make it past Paradigm. Well, except me, I said they were going to make it past Paradigm. 3-1. I said it.
You did. You get a cookie for that, and you already got your cookies, so stop talking about it, okay?
And then
we went through that.
Enemy are the dark horse, like the truest dark horse ever. It's a bunch of players that, you know, people thought were just average, and PainDeViande has drafted a squad that are now world-class players. These players have done so much to improve, and they deserve to be here in the finals, and they're going to have a very strong showing.
All right, well, Ataraxia, let's go over to you, because you have a lot of experience with this squad. You know what they're, Epsilon, excuse me, you know what they're capable of. In regards to Enemy, how do you feel Enemy will do dealing with a squad like Epsilon, a team that looked, I mean, especially in those last 2 games where they sealed the deal and cemented their ticket here, looked pretty much unstoppable?
I think the Enemy have a lot of work cut out for them. We had a grueling 5-game set with Epsilon versus C9 yesterday. And if I was Enemy watching that game, I would have been almost terrified as to how many picks each of the players on Epsilon brought out. We saw like at least 3 to 4 per player in a 5-game set. And they did very well on all of them. You know, we saw emiltoo pick out picks like Cupid, and we've seen it on her early in the tournament, as well as the meta picks like Neith and Freya. You know, adapting played, what, Mercury, Fenrir. Fenrir, 100% win right now, 3 games, all from adapting. Very impressive stuff. And
Naja as well.
And Naja too, yeah. You know, all of them, they have so many strong picks. And Enemy have been getting through, we've agreed, through their drafts. They are probably the strongest drafters, at least when it comes to meta picks. And how is that going to stack up to Epsilon when they are making stuff that isn't necessarily meta, putting it on the world stage, making it amazing, to the point where I guarantee people are back home playing ranked and thinking, you know what, this could be the new meta.
That's completely true. We looked at Enemy, and over again we've said, wow, these guys are winning games in the picking and draft stage. They're coming out and they're really focusing, they're using target bands, they're doing a lot of research, and they're playing incredibly smart. So the question is that can they do it against Epsilon? Because Epsilon has been the other best team in terms of the banning and draft stage. They did it very strongly against Cloud9. So will they be able to take out enemies, picking a draft stage? Because if you can make them not get an amazing draft, you go, okay, we're going into this even, then that should shift towards mechanically inclined Epsilon.
Yeah, and I think Epsilon, they know and they feel very confident in to kind of echo what you said, Ataraxia, that they have that deep god pull, that they know what's at stake here, and they have the tools that are going to bring them to victory. And I think that's going to be very important to talk about, right? The identity of this team, right? What is it about this squad? I mean, you heard the crowd just now, right? They are firmly on Epsilon's camp. And everyone that I've talked to, when I came outside yesterday after we, shut down the production, I was making my way downtown, making my way out to. Feel good about that one. Nailed it, baby. And I swear to God, if I get a boo out in the crowd, no,
They're all hating.
no, please. I'm a good man. Okay, my mom likes me a lot, all right? She told me that. Anyway, you guys are amazing, by the way. Thank you so much. You guys are all incredible. Give yourselves a round of applause. Seriously. Best crowd, bar none. Amazing stuff. And you had this very blank face. Come on. I just want to chat about this squad. And, they are the fan favorites coming into this game, and they just bring with them a lot of clout.
Epsilon are just so mechanically gifted. We've all agreed it's kind of mechanics versus intelligence here, but the problem is that Epsilon are also incredibly intelligent in their drafts. They have so many different diverse styles. They bring out these hunters mids, and we actually did see Epsilon, enemy deal with that very well against Paradigm, but I don't think they've dealt with Yammyn's Medusa, right? I don't think they've dealt with how good Epsilon are at these different kinds of styles. I think, Paradigm, they ran a bunch of different strategies, but they never really played to the strengths of the strategies they drafted. Epsilon will.
I think the biggest difference between, for this matchup for enemy is they've played against Paradigm, and Paradigm went incredibly out of the box. They went so far out of the box, they couldn't even see the box anymore. They were just all over the place in terms of picks and bans. And I don't think we're going to see that with Epsilon. I think we're going to see the perfect, the game that Paradigm won, where it was unique enough that it was going to throw enemy off, but it was still, you could clearly see this is a great draft. And I think what we saw in the set against Cloud9 yesterday was that exact thing in every single game. And that is, it's scary.
Our biggest comparison point for me that we have for enemy going up against this incredible Epsilon squad is the Cloud9 games at the Super Regionals. A lot of people have compared Cloud9 and Epsilon to be very similar teams. Same style, same kind of gameplay. And Cloud9 destroyed enemy at the Super Regionals, and then Epsilon beat Cloud9. They play the same style, but they played it a little bit better. So, can they go up against that squad that they've proven that style of gameplay seems to be their counter? That's the question for me.
Yeah, again, there's just... I'm so excited because the thing that has been, I would say, annoying a lot of people in here that I've talked to is that we as analysts, right, well, mostly you guys, I'm just here to look marginally pretty, is how, they just do not quit. And everyone says, oh, yeah, they're going to lose this game. Actually, if we even talk about their road to this event, right? And the teams they face off against, people even said Avant-Garde had an opportunity against them. And not to take anything away from Avant-Garde, absolutely phenomenal team, 5 great players. But it was based off of what happened to Super Regionals, right? And how they got shut down. Again, it was like, yay, good job, enemy, you made it, right? Avant-Garde, we predicted there's a possibility they could lose. And then they won. And then they faced off against Fnatic. And then everyone's like, no, they're definitely going to lose against Fnatic. Fnatic are they're just too good. And then they won against Fnatic. And then Pain Gaming, everyone was like, I can see Pain Gaming defeating enemy. And they did it again. They just shut up everyone. And then Paradigm, last but not least, Paradigm. Everyone's like, hey, man, this is it. Enemy's run is over. And the question was asked by DM Brandon, how many people or how many teams do they have to beat to be taken seriously I mean, is 4 the number, or does it have to be 5 now?
You know, here's my opinion on why this is, right? We've known Epsilon for a year now as Season 2 players that have played at this highest level that we've ever seen, right? And then coming into the fall split, you know, 27-1 run, an unprecedented run in the Pro League. And that makes sense, right? It's like we expect Epsilon, each individual player, to be phenomenal. And they are. An Enemy, you know, they came out, and even during the Pro League, like individually, they were just like, okay, they weren't star players. You know, they haven't even been at the top of ranked outside of, you know, 1 or 2 of their members. And it's just like, they're average. But honestly, their path was perfect for them because every team they face gets progressively better and better. They're not jumping straight. They didn't jump straight into the Epsilons and the Cloud9s, right? They started with TSM, who was struggling, right? Envy also wasn't, you know, they had their problems and issues as well. And they faced Cloud9, right? World champions, they lost in the Super Regionals. Each team is getting progressively better, and these players, I think, are also growing individually. The players here now at Worlds, especially against Paradigm, look twice as good as they did at Super Regionals. Like, Just is playing out of his mind. You know, Vetium, I think, is playing kind of the Vetium we expected to him. PainDeViande, his mechanics have been godlike. Like the Geb shields and the saves, and him and iRaffer, honestly, have stepped it up. And right now, the gameplay they've both had at Worlds has honestly been the best support play I've seen all Season 2 out of any individual players.
Dare I say they are the Titan of the 2016 Worlds?
They definitely have a similar rise, I guess.
Not as nearly as good looking as you are,
well,
though,
not even close. I mean,
I mean, look at the vest. You know, you got
the camera's not on us, but you know,
camera's not on
the camera
flag
was.
Right now.
I'm flaunting it right now.
It's showing all the beautiful people out there.
But they do have a very similar story in the terms that they kind of came out of nowhere. You know, they were not a big force at all in Season 2 until the very end, until they're showing at Super Regionals, which is the same for us. We came from the Challenger Cup, and our first land before Worlds was the qualifiers. We won that and then came to Worlds. So it's the same kind of story that, you know, they have made it here, they have qualified, they are absolutely good enough. It's just that I don't think they've been in people's minds, in the view long enough to really have the people's vote, you know? It's like the same thing with us and Fnatic last year. Everyone still regarded Fnatic as the top EU team, even though they lost to us at the Super Regional, the EU Regionals. And I think it's just the same story, that they haven't been in the public eye long enough to really be considered favorites.
Yeah, I feel like this is where, you know, like we talked about earlier, every single game, oh, this is the game where they're finally going to lose, you know? But that hasn't been the case. And so it's hard to vote against Enemy right now when they've proven everybody so wrong so many times in a row. But at the same time, when you have Epsilon, who everybody goes, oh yeah, they're just the best team and they're going to fly through the bracket, and now they're in the finals as well. So we have these two completely opposite stories, I think, in my opinion, of Epsilon, who just breezed kind of through. You know, they had the hard games against Cloud9, but, you know, everybody thought they were going to beat them. That was pretty good consensus, was Epsilon was going to win. And then, of course, Enemy, who shouldn't have won any of their games according to the fans, and all of a sudden they're in the finals, so I wouldn't vote against them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, maybe it's just now's the time that you just say, no, this is it, Enemy. Like, we're not going to discount you anymore. The matchup that I am eagerly anticipating is the Dimi saltmachine matchup.
Yes.
Dimi the Undying, as he has been called, although he did die quite a bit in the matchup against Cloud9, still, though, holds one of the most incredible records, in my personal opinion. Just, I mean, absurd how he could just stay alive. So, yeah, I mean, let's really talk about this solo lane matchup between Dimi and saltmachine, because this certainly has a lot of stories that can come out of this one.
For the topic of Dimi particularly, I think it should be very much highlighted for everyone at home that Dimi is very sick at the moment. He's come down with a flu at LAN, and yesterday you could see that on the camera after they won their game. You know, Epsilon all came up and they started jumping around. They were celebrating because they beat, you know, Cloud9, last year's champions, and Dimi was just sat there on the desk like, you know, it's really affecting him. And the fact that he is playing as he is, you know, he's playing that good, and he's still putting out such a performance, even though he's that sick. You know, I just hope he's better today, at least a little bit, because, you know, he's playing out his mind, and he can do a lot better than he already is.
Yeah, and
at this... pull a Jordan?
Yeah.
You gonna pull a Jordan?
You might.
The Jordan of Smite? Dimi?
The Jordan of Smite,
Let's
Dimi.
find out.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, it's good to point out, like, anything at this level of play could be a reason why you win or lose. So if Dimi's not firing at 100%, that's a great opportunity for saltmachine to come in, and especially with how strong the solo laners are in this meta right now, they're really carrying their teams. We're talking about them over and over again. Even on the Xbox scene, we talked about Omega, as MVP of that series. So we're talking about how strong these solo laners are. If one solo laner shows up because the other's sick, that's a totally valid reason why one team could win.
And the Salt Machine we've seen at Worlds is the Salt Machine we saw against Envy. It's the one that's dominating lane and also rotating heavily, because that was my real question for Salt Machine heading into this tournament was, which one were we going to get? Were we going to get the ranked all-star who just wanted to sit in lane and outplay his opponent but then get out-rotated? And we actually did see that against Pain, right? I think they were a little bit cocky because they felt like they were going to walk over Pain, and I think Salt Machine, that also played into that. Going against better opponents, though, we did see him start to rotate and honestly just outplay so many individuals and, Adjust put so much pressure on his lane, too, right? PainDeViande, he rotates and helps the mid. Vetium's just kind of left alone, and Adjust, he's always over to that soul lane. So, normally we see, I think specifically in the Cloud9 Epsilon matchup, we saw a lot of mid-jungle matchups, a lot of fights there. I think this game, we could be seeing some jungle solo fights.
I absolutely agree. Salt Machine, he's had a pretty solid tournament,
He's had a great tournament.
Yeah, and for me, he was one of the players that I was worried at for enemy coming forward. Because previously, in the SPL season, I think it's the main thing, he didn't have the strongest of showings. So for me, I'm absolutely overjoyed that he's turned up and he is showing that he is a top-tier solo laner. It's a shame that I'm sure Omega would love to give him a run for his money, but he's on Xbox, so rip Omega. You're gonna have to let Salt Machine take that.
I don't think he's crying too hard. He just multi-platform world champion now. I think Omega's gonna be okay.
Yeah, probably. He's gonna love that.
I think he's all right.
He'll be good.
Right now, at least. But yeah, you guys are right about that. It is going to be a very fun battle to watch in the solo. And then you got to talk about iRaffer, right? We got to talk about this young man. He, again, just I really have been enjoying what I've been seeing out of him. What is a difference maker here? What a difference maker he can be in the games. Are you expecting more of that? I mean, that Ymir plays, come on. That was just awesome.
And we've seen so many different styles from him as well, right? We've seen the aggressive Ymir play, but we've also seen the very defensive Khepri and Geb play. So iRaffer showing that he's going to be very versatile in this matchup, and that also goes towards the picks and bans. So far, PainDeViande, he's been succeeding more with the defensive style of Geb and Khepri. We expected, his Athena, them to try to play some aggressive games, but that's not what we've seen so far. Every team has given enemy a very defensive draft style, and if iRaffer can take that away and force enemy to be the aggressors, that could be something they could look to go.
I think Epsilon have got a big advantage when it comes to drafting against enemy as well, because what we saw against enemy Paradigm is that Paradigm figured it out, let's get Pain off these comfort gods, and he played Bacchus, and it was, for a guy who's been playing out of his mind, it wasn't the strongest of showings. So I think that Epsilon have got a real invitation here to target Pain, honestly, because he does have a very specific playstyle, and when he doesn't get the gods that can do that playstyle, he suffered. So I think that going forward, Epsilon have got this big advantage when it comes to the draft because they can, they can specifically target him, and I'm not sure the enemy can do the same against Epsilon.
I agree. Targeting Pain is probably the smartest option, and I don't even honestly believe that it's so much that Pain can't play these other gods as much as it is that his team is so reliant on him being able to peel for them. They're so used to being able to play extra aggressive because, oh, we're going to have the Geb shield, we're going to have the Khepri res. And so when you don't have that mechanic to help you out towards the end of the game, you all of a sudden put yourself in very bad positions, and that's something that gives you a lot of leeway as a team.
Speaking of Pain, one thing I do want to note is he's kind of been the villain this time around. And also, I just want to say, the way that he's been going on stage with like the Superman pose is probably like the most awesome thing. Every interview too, it's just like radiating with confidence. He just says whatever he wants to say. Do you think that's just kind of him being him, or him just trying to be like, hey, I'm going to do this because I just want to get my team in the game?
It's kind of both, right? First off, Pain has always been like this. The kid has no filter. He's very confident in himself and his own play, regardless, right? Even when he wasn't performing well, he's like, I'm not performing very well, but I'm still one of the better players in the world, right? And then honestly, that's helping his team because they feel and feed off his confidence, because regardless of whether he thinks he's going to win or not, he shows that he's going to win. And, he's going in with no fear in these matchups. And I think that plays, and I think that also, that feeds into the rest of his team.
Yeah, so, you know, PainDeViande has that confidence level that just, it's an aura around him where you can feel him, the way he walks and the way he talks.
Well, let's be honest. His name is Meatloaf.
Yes,
So you have to be confident with a name
to have
like
a name
that.
like Meatloaf. I agree. You know, he's kind of been the villain for me, at least, since Super Regionals, right? So ever since then, I've kind of been like, that's the bad guy. But no, they've been playing so strong. And I do think that that kind of confidence level can show in the game where you see, especially through his playstyles on Athena, where he just goes into a team where he's like, I'm not afraid of you guys. That kind of playstyle is really effective, though.
I do want to talk about something that Zapman had actually talked to me about. We've been discussing kind of the games and, you know, why PainDeViande and Enemy have been working so well. And Pain makes his presence known. Even when he's playing Geb and Khepri, the more passive defensive style supports, he's always in aggressive positioning and making sure he's not in a bad position to where he'll get picked off, but he's making his presence known. He's picking players off, knocking them up, giving them a little bit of poke, and you're always so scared, right? It's like, can I go onto this Geb right now, or is Khaos and Adjust about to jump out of the jungle, right? If we full commit to Geb, we're going to die, right? If we full commit and try and pick off Pain because we think he's out of position, we die. And we've actually seen multiple teams baited into that. And that's the same thing iRaffer does too. iRaffer makes his presence known. He's always aggressive. And sometimes both players do get picked off, but I think it gives both teams such a benefit because you're so unsure of whether he's actually out of position or if he's just setting up for his team.
Yeah, and I think going into the matchup, we're definitely going to see that be challenged, right? We're gonna see, and whichever side does it, we're gonna see who will be the team that makes and forces that situation, maybe to get the overextend, and then just full command and just picks them off, right? So again, lots of really interesting stuff there to talk about with the support game there. Now the Hunter game. We gotta talk about how that's gonna pan out. emiltoo and Vetium. I mean, again, two talented players deserving of this spot, fighting for the right to hoist Thor's hammer over their head. How much of a difference maker do you think these guys are going to play into this one, Ataraxia? We'll go over to you because Hunters have been a conversation point at this event because of how prominent Solo has been.
Yeah, for me, as a Hunter player, these are the guys that I look most closely at. And, real talk right now, Vetium or Vetium really impressed me at Super Regionals. He was, in my opinion, the majority of the reason they qualified. Him and Pain, seeing Pain on stage and the way he commands his team, and then Vetium in game. That combo was, for me, that was such a big driving force. And I have not seen that same Vetium here. He's been very quiet. He's been sticking to his Neith and his Neith, then his Neith. He played Chiron once. I feel like maybe he's gotten too attached to it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still playing really well, but it's not the same Vetium that we saw at Super Regionals, and I was excited to see that. And then on the other hand, emiltoo he is playing out of his mind, and he's not just playing one god or two gods as most Hunters tend to do, especially at events like this. He is playing everything. He's playing Cupid, he's playing Honor, he's playing Frey, he's playing Chiron, he's all over the board, and he's doing great every single time. Like, has he had a bad game yet?
No, I mean, he really hasn't, but for me, honestly, he talked about Vetium. He talked about how he's not playing that same carry style, and he's not, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. We saw Adjust is really the carry this tournament. He is absolutely destroying them through these amazing picks like his Circuit and his Batz. So I don't think Vetium has to go that carry route. He's been playing the Neith, and his world weaves have been absolutely incredible for saving his team and setting up kills.
The saving the team is a big thing. It's less about setting up kills, it's about making sure his team can get into the late game. And that's the style I've really realized that Enemy go for, right? They draft these very late game team comps, but what they do is they make sure that their Hunter has that aggression. And the thing is, right now in this meta, is that Hunters aren't as strong as solos, right? Until you get Deathbringer and Rage and Malice, right? Until you get this mass amount of crit, you're not as effective as the Jingtens and the Blown is heading into the late game. And what the Neith and the Soul and the Chiron specifically allow you to do is have a lot more presence in these early and mid game team fights. And that's why we see that go to Vetium, because his team trusts him. And it's his job to make sure his team can escape into the mid game, not too far behind, so the Khaos, Adjust, and Saltmachine show can take over.
Well, you had mentioned Neith and how it could be a comfort pick. He is playing good with Neith. Could you potentially see, Epsilon just ban that out and just be like, all right, well, try something else now, right? You've been playing this all tournament long. Here you go. Now it's time for you to do something different.
I know that me and Ataraxia both have been wanting to see the Chiron back out of him. He had such great Chiron gameplay, and while he's bleeding heavily towards the Neith, for helping the team, I would love to see him break back out that Chiron. It's such a safe pick. It's not like it's a risky pick. You don't have to do anything crazy. It's not an Artemis, but it's a very safe pick that brings good damage and can still help your team out. I mean, he has a passive heal that can heal your teammate.
We know emiltoo runs it as well, too.
Yeah, so this is my question now. As Vetium, we've seen just 2 gods all tournament long. They've played a lot of games now, and he's played Neith and he's played Chiron. Has he played Assault? No, he hasn't, has he? He's just plays those 2 as far as I know.
It's usually banned away from him.
Yeah, so if he has these 2 gods, that's all he's shown. What if they ban Neith and pick Chiron? What are we going to see out of Vetium? And that's
Cupid.
what I would love to see. I would love to see where he goes to next, because I have no doubt in my mind that he has another couple of gods that are going to be at the same level, but he hasn't been willing to bring them out yet. You know,
Maybe Freya?
more than anything, I just want to know what they are.
Maybe Freya or something
Yeah,
like that.
I mean,
Like,
it
it's
could
just
be
anything,
anything,
right?
yeah.
You just want to see something else,
Yes.
you know? And I totally get that. Yeah, and I wonder if Epsilon's thinking about that. I truly wonder if they're thinking about, you know, because there are a lot of things that you have to, you know, take into consideration, right? Especially in the first phase of bans, right? Of course, you have to think about Xingten and Bologna, right? Do you pick them? Do you ban them? Right? Like those are the, you know, and we've seen him banned and we've seen him picked, or we've seen him picked a lot. You know, they've pretty much been involved, I think, in almost every single game that we've had here thus far in this competition. So that's one portion. You already know, like, that ban's going to be gone, right? So do you target ban? Is Vetium important enough to target ban?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to say because he's not the standout player in these games, but he is doing very good, and you know, he's never a liability. So it could be that.
So yeah, you turn him into a liability.
Yeah, but at the
Right.
same hand, you know, if he has to play a different type of god than a Neith or a Chiron, someone who is more prominent, then he could turn into a liability, or he could turn into a bigger problem. He could be a carry, and that's, you know, that's the risk, I guess.
And that's what we're going to see in the best of 5 is the changing of the draft. And we know enemy are very good, and we know Epsilon are also just as good, and they also have a very deep strategic, you know, notebook. So we'll see what Epsilon look to open with, because enemy run the same style of composition. So we know Epsilon is going to either look to target ban something, force, you know, their other picks, and then really have a strategy to counter it. And will that work? I think that's the thing, right? Is Epsilon going to be able to find out something that works against enemy? And honestly, you know, I mentioned this earlier, this is going away from the players and more towards kind of a meta sense, is that
You're
enemy
so meta.
Thank you. Is that enemy have won every game 1, right? If they lose a game 1, is that just going to end them, right? Are they just going to fall? Like, is their mindset going to be bad?
I don't think so.
I don't think it necessarily ends them, but I do think that in order for enemy to win the series, they have to win game 1.
I agree. If they lose game 1, series is over.
Yeah, I don't think, you know, I don't think it'll be a sweep, but I do think that they need that game 1 to get the momentum. They're so used to having that game 1 momentum, like, we beat this team, see, they're vulnerable, we can do this. Without having that, it's the Cloud9 syndrome where they lost the first game at Super Regionals. It was like, oh, we didn't beat them. I guess, you know, they're just going to beat us. So then they lost 3-0.
And this is a big point as well, that, you know, Epsilon have had this grueling set against Cloud9 where they had to, you know, each game was, you know, first Cloud9 win, so Epsilon figure out what was the reason, and then they change it, and then they beat Cloud9, and then vice versa. And, you know, they had to adapt every single game. They were changing the strategy. And enemy didn't get that against Paradigm because Paradigm had such out-of-the-box picks. So what is going to happen is if Epsilon win game 1, and then enemy are like, oh, we have to figure something out, we have to change this, and they've not had that pressure yet. And that could be devastating in a long series, and it could cost them a couple of games.
Truthfully, I'm tired of counting enemy out. I truly am. And I just don't think, and don't get me wrong, and here's the funny thing, even right now as we sit here and analyze this game, I still haven't made my pick as to who I think will win. I have literally no idea, right? I'm going to make it at the end. It's going to be like, and that's what I'm going to go for, and, you know, pray to the gods that I get it, but that I get it right. I want to keep the record alive, you know what I mean? Finals picks, right? Keep the dream going. But I just don't know, right? Because I feel like, yeah, sure, right? You know, like if they do lose game 1, it is very realistic that they could just beat themselves up. They're young players playing on the biggest stage of their lives for a, you know, insurmountable amount of money. They're, you know, it's pressure, right? 100% through and through. It's easy to say that. Epsilon, seasoned, one of the best in the world, defeated Cloud9 on what could have arguably been one of the most insane games of this entire tournament. So yeah, composure, they got that in spades.
Here's the difference maker for me, and his name is Adapting, right?
Adapting.
Just has been playing phenomenally, but Adapting is actually the best player Smite has ever seen. I was talking to top-tier North American, pro players like Yannick and Bickham last night, and they even said, right, they're like, I never really bought into the adapting. They're like, he's very good, but, we're North America, we love Anderson, we still think Anderson's the best player. Adapting is the best player. That's what they said. They said, last night, those 2 games on Fenrir convinced me that there is no one better. And Adjust, as great as he's been playing, he is not going to be able to compete against the best player in the world, especially if Adapting gets rolling early.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little bit worried, too, that they might start to target ban Adjust. I think that would be a perfectly viable strategy coming out from Epsilon. We've seen him basically play the Surcat in the Hun match, right? That's what he's really leaning heavily towards. So if you get rid of those guys that he's so comfortable on, what's he going to break out? Because we know Adapting just going to break out Fenrir, Mercury. He has this huge god pool. So, but as we talked about earlier, the god pools are so deep for Epsilon, you can't really target ban them. So you have to go meta ban, where enemy, you either ban out Pain, in my opinion, or you ban out Adjust. You have 2 options.
I feel like you can probably target ban everyone on enemy, actually, because they have, I guess, because they haven't been target banned in the past, they've just been playing the same comp every single game. And, this is the deception. Do enemy actually have a small god pool, or are they just getting everything they want every time, so they haven't seen the need to bring out other picks?
In talking about that adapting target ban, it's like, I look at it as a scale, right? My head just works that way. And I see in this scale, adapting is like 80% full, right? Like he's like 80% higher than Adjust is in skill-wise, right? This is the scale. And if you target ban adapting, you just bring him, or Adjust, bring him even lower, right? And it just makes him even weaker. And then that just affects it even more. And then they get into their head even more. And then from there, it just snowballs. Like, because we know that adapting is the GOAT. So you just make the guy who has to go up against the GOAT worse. That is like demoralizing. Honestly, in any game that you play, that is demoralizing.
Right, and like, is Adjust head in this? Like, is he going to? Because we've actually seen him, against Cubo Fred, he had no fear. He was going in, he was taking the 1v1s. I remember in one of the games, right, that Thor versus Hunbat's play we saw at the Mid Harpies that honestly could have turned that fight into either team's favor. Adjust comes out on top, right? Now, there isn't a lot of respect for Cubo Fred, at least coming from the North American junglers, I think, but everyone knows adapting. We've been talking him up, every player has been talking him up, everyone in the community has been talking him up. And there's always a slight fear factor when you face those top-tier players, right? So, like, is he going to be there, right? Is he going to hesitate when he sees adapting in the jungle? Even a fraction.
It's hard
matters.
not to. You see it. I play a lot of EU rank to get to see a lot of adapting players, and you do. People will, you see adapting come in, and you think he has something that every other player doesn't. Like, I joke that maybe he just has a built-in red buff. That's why he's so good. Like, his Thor just does more damage than everyone else's because he's adapting. And it's like, it's that kind of fear. Exactly. He's just, that consistently good. And I think that will get into players' heads, especially if adapting has a great game 1. Like, if we see a repeat of the Fnatic game 2, where he went off on Mercury and his slash line was like 15-2, if we see that in game 1, it is very difficult not to be afraid of that for the rest of the set.
But that's what it is. People wonder what makes adapting better than other players, right? At some point, you can only hit all of your skills, right? You can't hit more than all your skills. It's because people give him too much respect. When you play against somebody of that caliber and you're scared and you're playing back and you're not invading the buffs because you're like, oh, he'll invade me and he'll do all this stuff, and you're playing like that passive nature, that's what gives him the extra edge that makes him the best player in the world, is he has a presence that makes people fearful.
All right, folks, so that is going to do it for our pregame show. Of course, the main event is going to start in just a little bit, but before we do that, I do want to so Bonafide decided to do something pretty cool, and yes, we have clothing just underneath the desk. That's all that's here. Bonafide did something pretty cool. They ended up getting the signatures of a lot of players here. I see Jeff Hindla, top 4 teams, as a matter of fact. iRaffer, PainDeViande, like everyone's here from the top 4. So it's actually pretty easy, and here's the hoodie. It's a pretty nice one, right? And all the signatures are here. All you have to do on Twitter is go and follow Live BNFD. So there you can see it right in the lower third right there. Live BNFD on Twitter for a chance to win a signed Smite hoodie. We just thought it'd be a good idea for the viewers at home, you guys who have been supporting us all weekend long, to win something cool from the event. So that is going to do it for our pregame show, everyone. Are you hyped up? Are you hyped up? Now you know literally everything there is to know about these two teams now, courtesy of my expert crew of analysis. It is now time for the grand final between Epsilon and Enemy. Who is going to raise Thor's hammer above their head? It's time to find out. Let's see how they got there.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for the Smite World Championship Finals! 3 days ago, they were the dark horse. Now, they are your first finalists. Enemy with solo Salt Machine! At Jungle, adjust! In the mid lane, Khaos! At support, it's PainDeViande! And their hunter, Vetium! Your second finalist at the Smite World. That was Enemy. your second finalist, the European powerhouse, Epsilon with solo Dimi. At Jungle, adapting. In the middle lane, Yammyn. At support, it's iRaffer. And rounding it off, the hunter, emiltoo. That is your team, Epsilon! Let's take a look at how they got here. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Make some noise for your Smite World Championship finalists. PainDeViande, please come a bit closer, buddy. iRaffer, come up here, guys. Wow. Dark Horse, 3 days ago, to finalists. Talk me through it.
Easy. Not even close.
iRaffer, you've played phenomenally throughout. You've done absolutely everything. You even bested last year's champion. Talk me. Where are you now?
We're in the finals. We're here to play. We're here to win. Hopefully we give you a good set. Hopefully not just 3 games.
Let's take it all the way. Gentlemen, I can imagine that you are excited, so I'm going to do nothing more than ask one more time for you guys to give it up for these great champions. They're already winners, your finalists. Please, shake hands down the line. Everybody, shake hands. You got to trust sides anyway. As I stand here next to the hammer that they both so badly want to lift, I can imagine that there is nothing else going through their mind than putting on a show for you. But I know that they've enjoyed your support. So I think one more time, guys, let's take a look at these guys over here. They were the Dark Horse. They are the finalists. Please make some noise for the guys from Enemy. Now, each story has a beginning and an end, and for Epsilon, it's been fantastic throughout. They played like utter champions, even taking down the mighty Cloud9. So please, ladies and gentlemen, show some love for Epsilon. Guys, you have been wonderful. Support these teams. Enjoy this final. This is it. It all ends here. For now, we're going to take it away with the picks and bans. I say thank you and thank these fantastic teams.
Here we go, everyone. It's time for the picks and bans to begin game number 1. Epsilon enemy. This is it. I'm excited. Everyone here is excited.
This right here might be
pumped.
the most important part to this series. Game 1 picks and bans is going to set the pace of this game.
Indeed.
Before we talk about picks and bans, I just want to say that I was in Epsilon's spot last year. And it takes, I think it's a very humble thing to say, which is not humble in itself, but it's a very humble thing to say that I think that this is the best team Europe has ever sent to Worlds, Titan included, and it's with that confidence that I say, and this is not disrespect to enemy, but I think that Epsilon are this good that they are going to take this 3-0 unless Rafa picks Guan Yu.
Oh, let's slow down for a moment. The picks and in the predictions. You know, we always do the lightning round, guys. Come on, don't mess up the flow. But we do got to mention Shingten and Bologna. Goodbye.
Yeah,
not
so
going to happen. Kepri as well from Epsilon.
There's the first target ban, of course, looking right there at Pain, saying, no way we're going to deal with you being able to bring people back to life. We'll fight all 5 of you, but I'm not going to fight 6 of you.
I really like the bans coming out so far, and enemy here, are they going to ban away the Zeus? Because Epsilon has shown that they like to prioritize it. However, it hasn't been successful so far for them.
Ooh, banning out the Freya. Well, we know that in Europe, Freya has been used quite a bit, right? That's been a storyline that's been brought up numerous times. And Soul locked in for Epsilon here to start this off. Adonis?
I expect Neith here, almost guaranteed, coming up from enemy. They love the Neith matchup versus Soul. And I was debating whether it was going to be Osiris or Athena, in my opinion. It looks like they want to make sure that PainDeViande's comfortable.
Is this the first time that we have seen Pain's Athena at the SWC?
He played it in one early game.
I think he got it one time, then they're like, never again.
Right. So he had an absolutely dominating performance at the Super Regionals. Incon knows all about this. Are we going to see the same kind of style coming out against Epsilon?
I love the Zhong pick here. We've seen Khaos play it, and honestly, he had absolutely amazing showings on him. We saw the one play where he teleported behind them and got the kills. Epsilon Esports are leaning towards that Neith. It's actually a brilliant pickup because it takes away the counter pick for Soul.
I agree, but this is exactly what Fnatic did against them as well. They ran the Soul Neith, and the problem was that enemy drafted into late game, and they held out against it. But the thing is, Epsilon's not Fnatic, and Epsilon aren't going to allow the 4K gold lead to stand for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but that Thor's adapting. Did you factor
Thor's
that?
adapting.
Thor's adapting.
That's how good adapting is. It's no longer adapting Thor. Like, Thor bows to adapting.
Thor bows to adapting.
And I love the Chiron pick here.
I am upset about the Chiron pick. I think I agree it's a very good pick, but I did want to see a third god out of Vetium.
Can you blame him? No. Look, you got rid of the Neith. You bring out the Chiron.
Look at the aggression from Epsilon. Like that 3 core, the Soul Neith, like Thor, you can't have a late game hunter in the duel lane. You need some pressure.
Interesting ban there. We see the Geb ban coming out towards shots at iRaffer, but honestly, I'm thinking he's probably going to lean towards that Ymir pick, Atarax, yeah?
I think so too. It would be, he's shown he loves it against Zhong specifically, or at least that's the correlation that we've drawn. So it would be very good, as well as against Chiron too.
Well, we know enemy has gotten their dream comp right now. Everything they're going down the list like, all right, number one.
It's gonna be a Hunbat's pick here in the last spot. I forgot that Circuit was already banned away and they've got Thor.
Yeah, so they have all of their almost priority picks, 1 or 2 slot picks. And there's
man,
Ymir.
We saw what happened when Ymir was in the battleground last time. Does he lock him? Yes, he does. I'm excited for that one. That's a good pick. I like that pick.
Yeah, no, I do like the... Oh, interesting. Sobek coming out for against the... Actually, technically, the Sobek Ymir could be interchangeable, but it's probably going to be the Sobek,
Do we know how Ymir's matchup against Osiris is in the solo lane? I do expect the Sobek, but I know that's not, it's kind of in Osiris's favor. But the Ymir could be one of those off-key picks that could surprise the Osiris.
Outside of Neith, enemy has got their dream composition. Epsilon Esports has this hyper early game, Fnatic couldn't do it with the early game comp versus late game comp. Can Epsilon? That's the question of this game.
All right, boys, it's been locked in. Predictions, Ataraxia, we already know where you're going, but might as well just repeat it anyway.
Epsilon, Epsilon, Epsilon.
This game goes to enemy esports with their perfect draft stage.
I think Epsilon Esports are going to take this series 3-1, and I think this is the game that Enemy's going to win.
Enemy will win this game. Enemy will win this series. That's it. All right, folks. Here we go. It is now time for the grand finals. Get hyped up in the crowd, and let's go ahead and send it to our casters.
Thank you very much, Golden Boy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the finals. We are very happy to be here. This is Brandon, and also joining us is the one and only Zapman, owner of Team Eager, and we are very excited to bring you this contest. It's a best of 5 between Epsilon and Enemy. Guys, who do you think?
I got Epsilon in 3.
I got Enemy in 3.
In 3?
Wow.
All right, maybe 4.
That's
maybe
adapting, man.
I have Epsilon winning this in 4. I do think Enemy will win a game. What do you think about this one, this particular draft? You always got to like when PainDeViande gets the Athena.
I think that they got probably their perfect draft here. I mean, they got all of their comfort picks. For some reason, Adjust keeps getting these same 2 junglers that he's so comfortable with. No one's trying to take him outside of his comfort zone. And like you said, if they're going to win one game, this draft is definitely something they could do it with.
Yeah, however, I do think Epsilon did pick, knowing that Enemy would pick this draft, because the Ymir can wall off the Zhong when he uses his ultimate. The Sobek can also pluck him away from the team. So I'd like to see how much control Epsilon will put on the Zhong.
We saw Epsilon play a very similar draft against another very similar draft, and it was successful with the walls against Zhong. We'll see. Khaos has been the best Zhong in this tournament so far.
I think he's been probably the best Zhong, I mean, like in years.
Yeah.
The way that he's played, I mean, Eager and Envy both kind of fell victim to this character, playing against him, and I didn't think that he was going to be able to perform as well at this tournament, but Khaos has proven me wrong.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that Khaos kept picking the Zhong. Didn't have a good showing at Super Regionals for NA, but Khaos is making it work.
Well, guys, we are getting ready to start this game off. Let's go ahead and introduce your teams. Epsilon, they are the blue team in the bottom side of the minimap and the left side of the spectator UI, nearly undefeated in regular season play and running through the World's Tournament. It's Dimi in the solo lane as Sobek, adapting in the jungle as Thor. Yammyn is the mid lane, Neith. iRaffer and emiltoo will combine as a dual lane, Ymir and Sol. Their opponents today wearing the red trunks, fighting out of the top side of the minimap and the right side of your spectator UI. It's saltmachine in the solo lane as Osiris. Adjust in the middle lane as Batz. Khaos is the mid lane. Zhong, PainDeViande, Vetium are the duo. Athena and Chiron.
Speaking of Athena and Chiron getting pushed away, Vetium going to take a lot of damage. That was a frostbite shot. Raffer going to control this lane, and that's going to be a missed purple buff experience. Both still available as the ever-aggressive Epsilon continues to strike first.
Yeah, both duo lanes have really good pushing lanes, so in order to guarantee that Epsilon would have the pressure in the duo lane, they went for the early invade.
50 seconds in here. emiltoo continues to be very aggressive. He'll pull some archer shots here. Probably going to get the better of that is Vetium, although emiltoo does have a fair amount of health potions available as well.
Well, it looks like a fairly standard opening here, out with the exception of Epsilon's aggression over here into the left side lane. PainDeViande, you see dashing through the minions and doing the damage with Athena. Being very careful not to hit the enemy gods and draw that aggro. Archer advantage is going the way of enemy.
We actually saw this strategy from Epsilon during the C9 games. Here you see adapting here, rotating to the purple buff. They stop enemy from doing the purple buff, then Thor comes in and rotates.
No, he's going to be looking for more than just a purple buff here. Tectonic Grip is going to be on the mark. That's going to keep PainDeViande locked in, but it's not enough with that Chiron cripple coming out to follow up, and the first gank is avoided by Epsilon.
This might be trouble, as Yammyn's going to be forced to stay in lane a little while longer to clear this up. Adapting's not going to have enough of a chance to really get crazy and go for the invade, especially with Adjust starting to rotate over, but he'll choose the wiser, go to the safer side of the map and go for some clear that otherwise should have belonged to Epsilon.
Yeah, smart plays by...
PainDeViande in a lot of trouble here. If they have the CCK, the wall is brilliant from Adapting, and that is first blood for the European squad.
You can hear Raffer, easy game, easy life, starting off with that first blood.
That one all comes down to that Tectonic Rift coming out from the Thor, locking in the Athena. No dash available there. And, well, we're going to see the geometry line up here with the Thor wall plus the Ymir wall. We saw this be very successful in the past for Epsilon. and I will be surprised if they win this game and this gets through into game number 2.
Yeah, again, Ymir is actually a very strong pick against Athena, or against any character that has a dash. The Athena has to be very careful of her positioning throughout the whole game.
Adapting going to get experience for both purple buffs on the left side of the map, be able to rotate back into mid. I'm expecting a back pretty soon for Boots too. This will also allow him to get to the right side of the map and continue that just excellent farm by going for the respawn blue buff.
Yeah, he'll leech out enough XP to get to level 5, and then probably look to set up a gank, and if it doesn't come shortly, go ahead and move on back to the base and find those boots too. But take a look at Adjust. He actually comes out ahead in the race to level 5 from the junglers, even with those 2 camps stolen.
Yeah, smart plays by Adjust. He knew he couldn't even help the duo lane, even if he rotated. So what he did was he invaded the back right harpies of Epsilon and kept his lead over adapting.
Both of emiltoo's potions have been exhausted. You'll see a very low mana pool. He's going to be forced back sooner rather than later. He'll sit on enough gold for Boots 2, which I assume is going to be his next pickup.
Support Ymir leading all players in gold per minute right now.
Well, he got a kill.
He got a kill, but hey, it should accelerate him into these completed, what are likely to be pen boots, is what we've seen out of iRaffer from ahead.
Yeah, it's actually strong for the support player to get the first blood. Him finishing the aura items that help his whole team can, excel them to the mid game.
Plus, this early on the pen boots is going to make it very hard for them to fight into him at this level. A very highly health scaling as well. You remember, 104 health per level means that the more iRaffer farms, the harder he is going to be able to kill in the mid game. A level 12 Ymir versus a level 10 Athena, which is just what it's looked like to shape up. I think that's going to be more than enough for them to control it. And with how early they've been going for Gold Furies, that extra help's going to be very useful.
Exactly. Now, expect enemy to just stay away from this dual lane side. Adjust is going to head over towards his solo lane side where they do have the pressure. And one of the big things in this game to look at as emiltoo gets jumped on here.
Yeah, Pen's going to get a bit of damage here out of that shield wall, and Vetium trying to nail it down. He's going to run for it. He will get stunned, but the ultimate is popped, and that will be sufficient to avoid the stun out of Souls in corporal form. And enemy answers back at the 4th minute.
Yeah, emiltoo was a little bit too far up there. Around the 4-minute mark, all the early game wards have vanished, and emiltoo just didn't expect the Athena rotation there.
With that, enemy answers back now 1-1, and they gain the gold lead as well, albeit only about 100. But at this stage, anything could be valuable. I mean, moreover, I think the value there wasn't so much the gold or experience, but the showing that, hey, we're still willing to fight you. We're not shaken.
And the biggest thing there is Sol is a god that's supposed to be ahead. She's made to be ahead. She has so much clear, but now the fact that she's behind, I expect her to get bullied throughout the whole game.
Enemy does have the very modest gold lead here through the first 5 minutes. 1 kill apiece on the board. The junglers sitting both at level 7, but no one really factoring into a kill just yet. You got to think Adjust and Adapting. The 2 synonym junglers are looking to get involved here shortly.
Look at this here. Salt Machine.
Oh, did he get it? He got it. Salt Machine with the timing there. Enemy solo later. A cheeky steal.
Yeah, these are the kind of plays you want to see from Salt Machine. Osiris, arguably the best laning solo laner in the game other than Bologna, and he needs to keep putting this pressure on the Sobek.
That was a really good steal. I mean, that's gold experience. I mean, the blue buff loss doesn't hurt Sobek too much. He has nigh on infinite mana between the builds that he's going to go for. Extra mana from things like Breastplate of Valor and cooldown boots. And then, of course, his ultimate that gives him back pretty much all of his mana as well. So he shouldn't be too troubled by that. iRaffer going to be forced to ult early. He'll pull the Gold Fury here. Very surprised to see Adjust not push him back into the Gold Fury. That should have been a kill. This time, he's going to wind up pulling it. That could be bad.
Adjust takes a ton of damage there. emiltoo going to rotate in as well. Vetium does find at least 1 kill, but now he will fall as well. It does appear. In will come Khaos as well with the ultimate. Adapting in a lot of trouble. He's going to go down as the Exercise Demons comes out, and now falling as well as Khaos. It's a bloodbath outside of the Gold Fury. 4-3 for Epsilon.
Very similar to the Cloud9 Epsilon game yesterday. They start off super strong, very aggressive, and 7 kills in 6 minutes. Spells that both of these teams really want to show each other that they have what it takes.
Behind?
Not anymore. That was really important for Sol to get those kills. But one thing to note is the Humbots, instead of just staying in there and auto-attacking the Ymir down, he tried to run away, but he still took the same amount of damage as he would have if he would have just stayed in and got off all that damage.
In the beginning, he should have ulted immediately, pushing Ymir back into the Gold Fury, which he pulled. I mean, that would have been a guaranteed kill, but I think he maybe got a little bit afraid. If I'm Epsilon, I'm noticing these things. I'm seeing that he's not willing to commit super hard.
Well, there was a big skirmish there just outside of the Gold Fury, but probably the biggest, or rather the most important or impactful part of that fight is that Yammyn does not have to rotate out of the mid lane. He gets about 50% of the tower damage in the mid lane there, in addition to getting a credit for an assist with his ultimate. No, sorry, he picks up a kill with his ultimate, in fact, and is sitting at level 10 above of the Zhong here. You can see putting up 500 structure damage with no other damage dealt on the map is likely to be the thing that's going to be the most important going into the mid game. It's going to be this level advantage on the mid lane Neith.
So 7 minutes in now for 7 kills, adapting, grouping up here with iRaffer for the left camps. Should be pretty free here. No contest, it seems. Enemy going to let this one go for now.
If you guys are just joining us here, wherever you're watching, whether it's Twitch, YouTube, Azubu, or any of the other fine streaming partners, or here live in the audience at the Cobb Energy Center in Atlanta, Georgia, thank you for joining us. This is game number 1 of a best-of-5 series for all the marbles. $500,000 going to the first place victor, Epsilon versus Enemy, and we are just getting underway.
Yeah, the biggest thing here is Epsilon has more of an early game, you know, I want to fight, I want to gank comp, while Enemy has more of the late game team fight comp. So I really want to see Epsilon try to push their lead, use the advantage of the Ymir early game, and try to build their lead.
Oh, PainDeViande taking a huge shot that about 50% of his health. He still has
no, adapting, channeling his ultimate over here on the left side. He's not going to be able to close it distance all the way into the mid lane, but will still get that double tap. The poke out of the PainDeViande factor here pretty heavily here. Just in a lot of trouble. The ultimate from Soul is going to be enough. Mudbot's ultimate expended, but with nothing in return. A 5th kill for Epsilon.
So smart. emiltoo holding the backline, forcing him to jump into his pathing, and then using his ult to block off exactly where he's going to land. With that, PainDeViande was going to be forced back to the base. He still has his ultimate available to him, but they'll have to expend it to hold this one off.
Yeah, they poked out not only Athena, she's going to be channeling the ultimate onto Khaos, but not before he takes about 3/4 of his HP pool. Zhong in a lot of trouble. One more shot from Yammyn to do it. It's going to be run down by emiltoo. Now PainDeViande, who's got a hard path to run. He can't go through the stun. And saltmachine's rotation will be good for 1 kill. Can he find more?
iRaffer by himself here. Yammyn took a different route. Good stun!
Oh!
I don't know if he's going to have this one. saltmachine's looking for the 2. He's not getting slowed out. He'll find it, but he's stuck. No, it's going to be Yammyn who's stuck. He's forced to backflip. saltmachine, Adamana will let that one go, and for some reason, Dimi in the other direction lets his team fall.
Extremely important rotation by saltmachine. They're in the 4v4 without the solo laners. Epsilon has a huge advantage, so they needed saltmachine to rotate on that Osiris, who has a huge lead on the Sobek, to really turn the tide of that fight.
Sobek choosing not to go into teleport, at least not just yet. He finishes off his Breastplate of Valor. Will be stuck in the solo lane for quite some time as a result.
Unbots is going to shove that lane in over on the right side as well and move back into his jungle, as we see adapting doing as well. Still a 1 kill advantage on the side of Epsilon, but the gold lead has shrunk down to effectively nil. Experience ever so slightly in favor of Enemy.
Yeah, I expect this Sobek not really to rotate at all, and he didn't want to buy the teleport because the Breastplate of Valor is such an important item for a Guardian in the solo lane. He needs that extra CDR, he needs that physical protection. Now look for the Sobek to try to apply more pressure onto the Osiris.
Bottom side buff's going to be taken here. Purple and red to be cleaned up quickly. Actually, all the buffs. You see the speed buff, not even on a sliver of respawn as the blue gets taken, all within 30 seconds of each other. Very efficient farming on the bottom side from Epsilon.
Yeah, the 4-man split those 2 camps as well. That should give them a honestly, yeah, you do see that reflected. They go up about 150 gold off of that split.
A Sentry Ward win here. Nice teleport opportunity, but a little bit too far. Didn't want to put himself out of position.
One of the interesting things to note about this early game is that even though iRaffer got the early kill on the Ymir, Pain is still ahead of him in experience and even in gold.
That's true. How did that wind up happening?
4 assists for the Athena, even though she got poked out of that last engagement. Has factored in pretty heavily into these fights. And, well, I guess, you know, it comes down to iRaffer rotating maybe a bit more than Athena has, catching an extra wave or 2 here and there.
In the mid lane now, Yammyn and adapting, grouping up here with iRaffer. It's a 3-on-3 as per usual, around 10 minutes. Gold Fury still available, and neither team going for it just yet.
Well, yeah. Transcendence is up here for the Neith with the power boots. A lot of power going to come out of this physical caster here in the mid lane. You know, do you think Epsilon should continue to apply the pressure, or are they trying to get into a farm game versus Enemy here?
No, Epsilon really needs to apply the pressure there. They have a lot of long distance damage and poke, which can really punish the Zhong pick when he tries to rotate.
And Dimi activating a health pot here to continue the slapbox fight. Shouldn't have too much trouble cleaning this up, even with a low mana pool. You'll notice he does have the blue buff for sustain. saltmachine trying for some damage here. Shouldn't get too much out of him, though.
Yeah, the Judgment Tether comes out, and that's going to force Dimi to dash away. And then Osiris will continue clearing the wave. He'll get enough mana back through either his ultimate or the blue buff. But no, instead, Dimi will fall back and go ahead and pick up that teleport.
Even though these slap fights in the solo lane, they look like they don't mean much, but they actually do. What happens there is saltmachine makes Dimi use a lot of his mana, so when maybe a team fight does break out on the other side of the map, saltmachine is ready to rotate while Dimi can't.
Speaking of saltmachine, still sitting on teleport 1, it is active and ready to go. A full teleport 3 picked up on the last back. And you'll notice he's walking back to lane, talking about Dimi. This is so he can actually rotate to the Gold Fury a little bit later than if saltmachine were to, take the teleport. But he's going to do, no, not the same thing. Sitting still on teleport 1, going into Runeforge Hammer.
Okay, so thinking that he's not going to be needing to make the rotations too quickly as saltmachine, rather preferring for the more mid-game itemization option here. Vetium's going to get caught out of position. Adapting's going to lock him in.
Decent damage.
They're going to deal a decent amount of damage, but they're not really willing to commit as Epsilon.
decent damage, not from adapting that time. Yammyn forced the
this is
backflip
gonna
a
be
bit
a
early.
fight. Let's take a listen with Epsilon's comms as iRaffer moves in and adapting goes up.
Be careful, the Osiris is behind us. I'm pulling Osiris. Trying to make it safe. Chiron. Zhong ulting, ulting. I need help, they're on me.
Look at Zhong. I'm on Zhong.
Those are in. Careful.
Careful. Okay, I have a slow. You wanna go?
Nothing.
Yeah, healing. Nice. Double tap.
I have to get out. Yes, down.
Hold him in.
Bat Dimi.
Nice.
Alright, go. Batz alive.
How much you spawned?
The delayed deicide will result in a gold Fury pickup by Epsilon, and once again adapting. We've heard him called the best player in the world, comes up with a phenomenal set of plays.
Poor adjust. The whole time he's trying to jump out of that fight when he's actually getting stuck against the wall. It looked to me like he was aiming his targeter inside the wall and was unable to jump away. He got caught. I mean, that's land nerves. That's what's happening when you're on the biggest stage of all.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you're looking to escape with someone with a leap, you automatically default to max range leap, but what happened is that clipped the wall. He really needed to do a medium range leap to get out of there.
And a small mistake like that results in Hunbots not getting anything off in that fight. They won the extended 5v4 as a result, and there's Yammyn, 3 kills out of the 5 in that exchange, and of course the Gold Fury afterwards. They're up now 3,600 gold.
And Raffer's Ymir, I mean, is this going to be the second year in a row where we're going to see Ymir from a European squad be the difference maker? And will we see a ban on the father of the Frost Giants?
I mean, if you're going to play Zhong against Epsilon, Ymir has to go away. I mean, I think that's what it is. This is the second time we've seen them do this, and it's incredible.
Right. I mean, when you think about Khaos' god pool right now, we've only seen Zhong and we've only seen Agni, both gods which Ymir is a good counter to.
Fair enough, yeah, with the dash and with the need to basically walk into the fight from Zhong. And you notice there, Raffer has leveled up the wall yet again. I think he has 3 points in it now in his first 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. 3-4-1-2 is the build-up for your Ymir.
Very strong. I mean, just being able to block
it's heresy to not level the stun. Basically, I mean, like 3 months ago,
Glacial Strike.
If someone, yeah, I mean, Glacial Strike and the stun are always the first 2 maxed.
It does work well with this comp because he does have the root from Neith. All Neith needs is half a second to guarantee her root, and it doesn't DR the target.
Which is so good, too. I mean, with this wall, being able to block out for so long, at this rank, I'm pretty sure, if it's level 3, I would assume it's 5 seconds, yes? 4 seconds, 5 seconds? 4 seconds.
Start counting. 3, 4. Okay, 5 seconds.
It's like 1,000 seconds.
Yeah, a long time is the point there, as it's Raffer adapting and Yammyn in the mid lane facing off Khaos, PainDeViande, and Adjust. All 3 from the same positions here, the support, the jungler, and the mid laner.
Plus, they have the Thor wall as well, which is really important. I mean, consider Vetium does not have a jump. He has a dash. So does Athena. So Zhong has neither. Saltmachine would have to use his ult or his passive, I guess, to get through these things. Structure comp against enemies' current team comp is actually really strong.
Yeah, I mean, and they're doing a great job of making enemy use their actives. 3 times, all 3 deaths that Adjust has had is because he's been caught without his beads up.
It seems like more and more teams are really figuring out the Hun bots in this tournament. He's been a very, very popular pick. He's factored in pretty heavily to, yeah, you could go, Brandon.
I mean, this sounds like 2012, 2013 when, original Sun Wukong broke the game entirely.
I thought you were going to say that you called that Hun bots was going to be a pivotal pick in this tournament.
Oh, no. I mean, this is, well, I did, but this is like way old school, right? I mean, Zap, you remember way back in the day, I mean, Sun Wukong was banned every tournament, and then eventually people let him through. It's like, I don't think people remember how to play him anymore, and if they do, we figured out how to fight him.
Yeah, I mean, he was extremely strong, and his passive actually gave him 10% movement speed. Movement speed is one of the strongest stats in this game.
Yeah, the out-of-combat movement.
Tell that to Anister yesterday, who got that crit twice in a row, right?
Yeah. but this is why Thor is such a popular pick. If Adjust or the other team wants to go for the Hunbots pick, it's very weak in the early game. So you saw Adapting put a lot of pressure into the duo lane, while Adjust, all he could do was just farm.
Speaking of adapting, the Mail of Renewal getting started up here. Once that's finished, he's going to have full CDR and a lot more effective frontline push in these fights. Remember, with the Raffer's wall, he'll have a way to get in and out very efficiently. And if he does find 1 kill, he's going to start taking health back faster than what I assume enemy can deal.
Once again, it's Yammyn. I mean, there's so much attention paid to the rest of the squad on Epsilon, but this cat is the
unsung hero.
reason that they are winning these games. 4-0-6 on the Neith.
Oh, this
finds 2 wards.
That was 2 sentries too.
The dream.
That was really
sentry return for Vetium there as he rotates in and does get that vision back. But Yammyn is definitely the player to watch here. I mean, there's some flashy plays coming out of Raffer and adapting, but Yammyn is the rock that is the key to victory for Epsilon.
emiltoo right now, Stellar Burst, some damage to Khaos, not a lot. They're going to pressure in.
There's a Polynomica done on emiltoo here, so you know, each one of those shots is starting to tick this tower down more and more.
Speaking of which, look at that one, adapting to the sky, and the backline gonna miss, but the structure comp starts to tick away. iRaffer with a ton of damage from the ultimate, and adapting, although he's in trouble. The Mail of Renewal, a small amount of CDR lets him get in and out very efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, that one just comes down to the ability to lock those targets down with the structures in the Soul ultimate, and you notice that Soul is going for a very mage-esque build-up.
You got to be so impressed with Epsilon. What they did there is they baited their 2 carries, so Athena thought she was safe. She got, oh, I got a taunt on 2 carries. iRaffer was waiting in the back line there, so once the taunt went off...
Whoa. Saltmachine that has just not rotated over at all. He finally gets back, and there's the wall. He walks over. I don't even think it needed, but the Phoenix is going to fall at 18 minutes, and the teleport available on Saltmachine does not get used.
A little bit odd by saltmachine not rotating there. He probably thought he couldn't do anything, try to get as much farm as he can.
Maybe just misjudging the damage coming up from Soul with Polynomicon as well. And yeah, he does... What's so curious there is that he kind of commits to that split push, but gets what? 7%, 10% damage on that tier 1 tower on the right side.
Let's go back to the replay. Let's check out, you know, the unsung hero again. It's going to be Yammyn from the backside, doing as much damage as possible. Immediately puts the weave down and is ready to initiate on the fight again.
Doesn't even need the ultimate here. You can just see how the fight breaks out, and then comes that AoE root to hold them in place. Damage coming through, and there's a rampage for Yammyn here. He'll find a second kill as well at the end of this.
Yeah, the most impressive thing, like I was saying before, is that the carries baited themselves for the Athena to come in. iRaffer waiting in the back line, moves forward, uses his freeze, forces beats, and then adapting goes up in the air as Thor to clean them up.
It's an 8,000 gold lead, or at least almost. They're getting there. I mean, Epsilon has already put themselves in a great spot.
Oh, adapting once more, looking over here, just outside of the red buff, going to go into multiple targets here. They're going to force a leap out of Adjust. The wall just off the mark. Adapting still going to move in.
He's missed everything.
Yeah, he missed all of his abilities there.
And he's fine.
He's going to beads away from the Hunbot's ultimate, and iRaffer's now going to take the brunt of the damage from enemy, but in will come emiltoo.
Wall.
The shell's been used. The wall is there. PainDeViande's frozen in place. He'll take a bunch of damage from Stellar Burst plus the Polynomicon proc.
That root, man.
But that should be enough to get them out. It just actually goes in, but they're walled off by... Oh, the burst!
So close. If actually he didn't get stopped there by the wall, he might have died because he was stepping inside the trail left by Soul.
Just too much poke. I mean, Adjust is poked out. Saltmachine's poked out as well. It doesn't look like enemy's going to have a very good option to aggress in here. In will come Saltmachine plus an Athena ultimate, but too little, too late. Can they find the return kills?
No. Dimi in the back line, just going right through them all. They're going to continue their pressure onto iRaffer. It's possible. Damage coming through from Vetium. They'll need a few more. Perfect wall. The slow coming off, but Chiron will catch it in the back. Helped with Khaos with the guard.
Yeah, if Osiris was there a second earlier, they really could have done something in that fight. That was the kind of fight they had to take. Epsilon was half HP, half mana doing that Gold Fury.
Well, 15-7 now for Epsilon. They've built themselves a nice and comfortable lead. 9,000 gold and nearly 9,500 experience to their credit through 20 minutes here. 15-7. It's looking pretty good for them. They find their second Gold Fury as well and avoid major losses on the retreat. Still the mid-Phoenix down for enemy.
Yeah, I mean, enemy's not out of this yet, but Soul has a huge lead, almost 3K on the Chiron. It's going to be really tough for Vetium to get the kind of damage output that emiltoo is doing right now in the team
And
fights.
Vetium just procced into level 15 as well. He just got there, which puts emiltoo so far ahead. I mean, Chiron is a very strong character, but he's not like a hyper carry. I mean, Soul has the potential to do so from the backline.
Yeah, an enemy right now in these team fights, they can still win a team fight. They do have the Zhong all in, plus the big AoE CC of Adjust. What they need to do in these team fights is Athena ult, Saltmachine, go into the back line, try to take out this Soul or the Neith, who doesn't really have a great escape.
Adjust again, forced to beads here. iRaffer looking for the wall. No, he second-guessed himself, and as a result, it will miss.
No tier 1 towers remaining on the side of enemy, just a tier 2 on the left and a tier 2 on the right. Mid lane, about a minute away, it looks like, from that Phoenix respawning as well. It looks like the aggression is going to come to the left side, where Vetium is completely isolated there. The Neith ultimate getting credited for that kill.
That was beautiful. The way they shut him down, the way they brought him forward, they gave him no room to walk. They're going to get another tier 2. The lead extends again by another 1,500. Adjust, no beads here. Going to get flung around. He jumps away. 10-second cooldown, trying to find a way out of this one. Adapting, not willing to let this one go. Stays inside the Fear No Evil, and it's going to be a kill for Dimi.
This is a really, really tough position now for enemy here. Left side being split pushed by a Polynomicon Soul plus the Neith. They're going to be forced to invest into here, but not before that Phoenix does go down. emiltoo looks like he wants to continue fighting, and indeed he will. As Adapting comes crashing in. Another brilliant wall out of iRaffer. The ultimate going to pop it down. Will go Khaos. 4 members down. Just Saltmachine still alive, but not being too greedy yet is Epsilon. Now they will go in and start damaging the Titan, but with 2 Phoenixes down, they know that this Fire Giant is wide open, and they're going to make their way to the right side of the map.
I really thought they were going to end theirs up.
They could have ended it, but, you know, they just wanted to have that mindset. Let's play discipline. Let's play discipline.
You know,
and I think, you know, trapping enemy in this game where they're so far behind is, you know, it's starting to chip away probably at their morale. Because look at it. I mean, enemy has a Just on one of his top gods, Khaos on one of his top gods, and Pain on one of his top gods as well, and Saltmachine on his signature Osiris. This is their comfort picks, and they're getting really worked by the Ymir.
They're going to bring 2 in. They released the Fire Giant from the fight, it seems. Yammyn will take some damage off the Mist Tank. They're going for it, though. Saltmachine not taking a lot of damage. They definitely overcommitted to this fight on the side of Epsilon, and there's not a lot of mana for them to continue this.
That's big. The Athena taunt is down now, so the re-aggression is going to be really unlikely for enemy for at least the next 10 seconds.
I thought they were going to go in. I mean, iRaffer, you can see, is actually going back right now.
Yeah, you notice how Epsilon backed one at a time. They wanted to make sure they staggered their backs so enemy didn't feel confident enough to use their to go for Fire Giant there.
Dimi on the right side continues to hold. He wants to keep himself close enough to the Fire Giant to ensure that they have control. You can see him rotating in after he helps clear the wave. Saltmachine's going to be back in here. Again. Teleport still available. He's got his Nemean Lion and Shield of the Underworld combo on as well to try to help shut down some of the auto attack damage. And obviously, Neith can be very effective in that regard, but Soul not as affected.
You almost never will see a height of the Nemean line outside of a 6th slot. It just goes to show you how far ahead Epsilon is, especially considering that Soul is a big-time problem here for Saltmachine, and the Thor, not so much. It's really only the Neith that's going to be too affected by the hide.
Chiron in some trouble early. Ultimate, that's a huge point of CC reduction gone. They're still going right into him. He does get the block, actually, in the World Weaver.
The block comes out from Saltmachine, but it's just not going to be enough to stop the damage coming out from adapting.
Uh-oh, it just jumped early. Thor still in the sky, it seems. Yeah, he'll blink out, but he gets the double tap.
Yeah, he's still going to be in trouble as the beads are going to be used to reset cooldowns. Just in a lot of trouble here. He is going to go down as well. Yammyn is divine. 9 kills and no deaths for the mid laner of Epsilon.
You know, if enemy could blind pick, they would have probably picked this comp, but they have no practice in NA against Ymir. Ymir is almost never picked in NA, and this Ymir pick is literally winning them the game.
We saw them use this against Cloud9 effectively. That has Epsilon and enemy as well. Seems to not have an answer for the god and the creator and the father of the Frost Giants.
No trouble whatsoever there. PainDeViande going to get looked to as Adapting goes deep to try to continue the fight. Wall about to come out. Yeah, PainDeViande blocked off. PainDeViande stunned. He's rotated and he's gone. Adapting with the kill.
I mean, those of you at home or watching here in the audience, I think everybody knows what it feels like to get beat by a support Ymir.
Whoa, wait.
Just everywhere.
Bart, wait. 3-1-19? Has Adapting been a part of literally every single kill?
Adapting sitting on 100% kill participation in this game. 22 kills in 25 minutes.
It's not even
possible. And the Thor has been in all of them. 19 of the kills participated in by Yammyn as well.
Jeez. Zap, talk to us a little bit about that. Like, how does a jungler get to that point?
Global's hard.
That's incredible. I mean, that just means Adapting is the one. He's play calling. He's leading his team. He's telling them where to fight, when to fight, and who to go on.
Well, he should stick around for this one. Yeah, Fire Minions coming in from 2 sources, it seems. You'll see it looks like Yammyn going to back up just to get those creeps into the jungle. They have 3 full waves coming in just a second. Are they going to take this opportunity?
Yeah, there's no rush for Epsilon. They're just going to wait here, wait for the fire creeps to pour in from all 3 waves, and probably maybe take down these Phoenixes as they spawn.
I do want to give you a little factoid here about Dimi. Dimi has been pretty ill for this entire tournament.
Yeah.
And you may notice it in his playstyle. It's a little bit more passive than you expect to see out of this player, especially considering what happened in Super Regionals. That being said, I believe he's died under 5 times in the entire World Championship tournament. That's not a joke. Yeah, I mean, he's sitting somewhere between like 0 and like 4 deaths.
And that's another Phoenix. That's another 1,500 gold between the two. Check out gold in hand here. They're going to back and spend it. It's a great opportunity. Oh, everyone over 2K except for Dimi at 1,900. 10,000 gold is about to be spent.
Yeah, there's no point to risk it. You know, it's very dangerous fighting it to 5 and trying to kick out the Titan. They're going to back up. They all had 2,000 gold in hand. They're going to get another item, you know, get another power spike, and then look to end the game.
And they still have 2 minutes with this Fire Giant with 3 Phoenixes down. Nothing is stopping them from taking this over. They still have 6 towers up. Even if they wind up wiping in this fight, there's no way there's enough time for enemy to return this game.
Yeah, there's a Ratatouille out on the Soul as well, which means his poke is going to start nearly killing a Just. I mean, like, there's not much that he can do really against the Polynomicon Ratatouille combination. It's going to be about 1,000 damage out of those Stellar Bursts.
Adapting leading the charge here. Yammyn right behind. Just kind of like how the casters talk about it usually.
Yeah, yeah. And well, you see Ymir and Sol making their way up, and it's going to be a purple pot Ymir at the 27th minute.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I mean, if you know you're going to end, spend the 450.
Yeah, he's just min-maxing his damage. There's no reason if you have 500 gold left to not get that purple pot.
He's going to go for the probably the extra damage out of his ultimate onto the Titan is what Raffer's got to be looking for here.
Adapting, baiting the back. I was affected. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. It's just mind games. Mind games that Adapting play. They want to show that they're a dominant team, and they want to, get them in a really demoralized mentality for game 2.
Adapting showing off his best Omega impersonation there, spamming the recall. Now will go up into the sky.
Clean.
With the ultimate coming down from the Ymir with the purple pot. Epsilon cleanly takes enemy down.
So it's great. They get the Fire Giant. They go back to the front. They take the right Phoenix, the right tier 2. They go right into the mid lane, get the respawns of the Phoenixes for another 1,500, get a few buffs out of the jungle, and then they back. They don't try to push the win. They're not trying to do anything crazy. They spend 10,000 gold and walk into that base, ignore the ads, and take down the boss.
Yeah, I mean, it was an extremely methodical play by Epsilon. They had a huge lead. This was only a 26, 28-minute game, and they took every single tower, every single Phoenix, and every single objective from enemy.
This could be a quick set.
Now it really comes down to enemy with some of the best picks that they have in their available rosters, unable to break through Epsilon, playing, well, basically an Ymir plus a couple of Hunters.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. They played their exact comp that they've won every single game with. I'm curious to see what they can bring out.
Well, we'll see what enemy has left in the tank, guys. Let's toss it over to Golden Boy to break down game number 1. Analysts, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bart. And what was a draft that was absolutely on enemy side? They just could not get it done against Epsilon. Look at you over there, Ataraxia. What's up?
I mean, I disagree. I think any EU fans at home, any EU ranked players or competitive players will know that is an EU draft. That is, you guys are all talking about how the enemy draft is perfect. So that is EU's perfect draft, and we still why,
I think it was more the execution of the draft, okay? And in all honesty, too, right? Epsilon had those gods that could look for the early picks. Sol dominates lane. They have the Neith ult, the Neith global, the Thor global, as well as the Ymir walls. And that's what we saw from First Blood, too. Early on, PainDeViande gets picked. He walks into the jungle immediately. iRaffer perfectly walls him off, and then the Sol damage and then adapting coming out of the jungle is just too much for him to handle.
Honestly, this is one of the few times I think we saw enemy not play to their draft. They drafted this team comp that they've been looking for, where they fight at about that 20 to 25-minute mark, and they were looking for fights really early, about that 10-minute mark. We saw a couple times where they re-engaged fights that they were already losing that they had no business being in.
And I felt like they played actually, it was okay at about the 10-minute mark because it was even still. But then eventually it just didn't work for them, and a couple people got picked. Just definitely got picked off, did not have a strong game. And, we also noticed Adapting also not having his best game. Some missed mechanics here or there. He wasn't the Adapt King we saw in game 4 or 5, but still, such a great play.
I think we saw some mistakes. It wasn't the usual, perfect hit every single ability from Adapting, but, saying that it was still a Thor worthy of the world stage.
For sure.
He did contribute to 100% of the kills, I believe, by the end, which is, that's not an easy feat. That is... You don't see that every day, So even though he did miss a few abilities, I think the fact that we are criticizing Adapting for going for a perfect game, 100% kill participation, and he missed a few abilities, and that is criticism for Adapting, just says how good he actually is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I do agree with you there. He still had a great performance.
Everywhere on the map.
Yeah.
Just everywhere.
He had presence, right? And I even felt like... perhaps enemy knew that as well. They're looking at this and saying, oh crap, here comes Adapting. And that can kind of throw you off as well. Like, you're worrying about so many weapons on Epsilon, so many players, that at any point in time could just turn up and just wreck you. Right?
Yeah. So, Adapting played so well, but really the highlight of this match for me was Yammyn. Yammyn played absolutely on fire, and we're seeing why these Hunter middles are so in the meta right now. How incredible was that Neith play? It was amazing. The entirety of it was so great.
It was just perfect setup, and honestly, for enemy, if I'm enemy, I'm looking at banning away Sol, because right now, that's really what's making the Hunter's mid so potent, because they can put Sol over in that dual lane. And we actually saw Fnatic run a very similar composition against enemy as well, but enemy played a very passive game. They only allowed Fnatic at about 4K ahead, and then they held out until late game.
Well, this is the thing. They banned Freya going into this because I assume they felt like the Freya was the more dangerous pick out of Freya and saw that enabled the Neith middle. So can they actually ban both, because then we see the dangerous situation of Jingqian, Bologna, or Kepri making it through